Welcome to the Ola Hawatmeh Show on American One. My special guest today, Dr. Erwin Benedict Valencia, who is an award-winning coach, mentor, runs 2 nonprofits, and making a difference in this world. His story up next. Stay tuned. I am back on with my friend, Dr. Erwin Benedict Valencia. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
I am amazing. Thank you very much for having me. I'm, just enjoying a sunny day in beautiful Boston, Massachusetts, as I'm here
Wow.
for a couple weeks, spending time with my parents in their little apartment here in Boston, and while they are on a cruise ship to try to see the Northern Lights, which they missed the Northern Lights here in America.
Wow. I love the hat. So I decided to do the podcast in a hat. It's not as cool as yours, but you know what? We're hatting it out today.
We're hatting it out. We're having a hat chat.
We have known each other for so long. It's been like 10 years, probably.
I think so. I think because we met each other while I was still in baseball, correct? Or was I
Yeah.
transitioning from baseball to basketball?
You were actually working with the Pirates.
Wow. And I left the Pirates in 2012. So I might have met you in 2012. And then I think I still went to St. Louis for a conference in 2013, which then we really got to know each other. And then I ended up moving to the Knicks in 2014.
Now, before you came on, I did the intro, and it's just amazing. You're an award-winning coach, mentor. You run 2 nonprofits, and you're so. What I love the most about you is your humility and humbleness, and your ability to reach so many, not asking anything in return, but wanting to make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's inherent in me and my culture as a Filipino to always be in service of others. I think most Filipinos know that our culture is one of giving back, especially since the disparity of rich and poor in the Philippines is pretty massive. And so I think growing up, I already knew the difference between what it meant to be fortunate and what it meant to not be fortunate as you walk really outside your door. And I think we were initially and we're always um, taught to be grateful for what we have. And then in turn, once you've found success in your life, to always come home and find a way to give it back to where you came from.
Amen. How did you get started?
Ooh, in what? In the multiple things that I do.
Your career as a doctor, I mean, you had this passion as a philanthropist to give back always. How did you get started in your career?
Oh, in my career itself, I think I knew at a young age where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be. I think initially I thought my world would end up in broadcasting. I actually really idolized. I grew up in the birth of MTV, and I wanted to be an MTV VJ, and then eventually, actually, because I enjoyed sport as well, there was an old an announcer or a newscaster on CNN Sports at that time named Fred Hickman. And that was the first time I've ever seen somebody on TV talk about sports, but also have jokes around it or create different things in a relaxed manner rather than the ABC's Wild World of Sports, which is a very almost documentary style reporting of the sports that happens during the week. You know, news back then was just news of things happen every day, but then sports was just a little side note. And Fred Hickman was one of the first to really make it entertaining. And I figured that I like sports, and that's the direction I want to go. I want to talk in front of a camera, and also with MTV, I thought that I'd love music, so I want to talk in front of the camera with music. And so, I think initially those were my 2 goals. But then I was growing up, and 2 monumentous occasions in my life really became the direction for me to go to. And one of them was my father started having these conversations with me and my siblings at a young age. Maybe by the age of 14, 15, we would be cornered in our breakfast table on Sundays, and my father would ask each one of us what our 5-year plan was. And we'd have these conversations with my dad and sitting while he's sitting in the toilet, and and then from like outside he would like have these deep conversations about why do you want to be that, like where do you want to go to school, like what you, and you're just like, first of all, why are we having this discussion while the door is closed and you're in the toilet while I'm outside of here? And number two, if we did have these at the breakfast table or the brunch table on Sundays, you know, why does it have to get so serious? And you knew that the seriousness was going to come because after brunch, my father would spark up a cigarette, and you knew that one of us, me, my brother, or my sister, would get a question. And then, it was up to the two others who weren't asked that question to leave. It was
Wow.
very interesting. It was a very interesting way to grow up. But it was because of that, we became very goal oriented. We very centered on mission and our being mission driven. But it was because of the fact that my mom and dad lived in New Jersey at my great uncle's house, who was the town doctor of Lodi, New Jersey, that my parents were really inspired for me to hopefully be like him one day. He was a guy that came from the Philippines, did his residency and fellowship over at Mount Sinai, and then while doing that, lived in the town of Lodi and served the people of Lodi, New Jersey for free, while he was doing that on his spare time. And my father saw this and he said, "This is one person that you should emulate." Not only do the people respect him, because one point in time I think his visa was running out, and the entire town rallied and lobbied to a senator of New Jersey to permit him to stay and give him residency. And because he took care of people, even the postman that would get stuck. I know the stories of postman getting stuck in the blizzard. And, in the morning when my aunties would wake up, they would see a strange man staying in my great uncle's office, but he was a postman that got stuck in the blizzard. And so they gave him refuge. He gave him refuge. And so definitely he was a man of the people. And I think my father was very inspired that hopefully one day I could be like that, not just from the means of service, but also because he was a physician and he was in the world of medicine. And what's funny, I think till this day, I owe, I guess that sense of not only just being a clinician, but also being somebody that serves others in a bigger aspect, particularly in a town. And so that's kind of how that started. And I apologize for the random ringing.
No, absolutely not.
Uh,
I hear
I
music to my ears because we need more people, and especially our youth, the next generation. We need them to hear this and to emulate this because it's so inspiring.
Yeah, so that kind of got me started. And you know what, when I was growing up, and I tell the story about my dad putting us, asking us questions at a young age, because he would tell me like, I know that's the direction you want to go, but it's not a secure world. How many people make it to become the top newscaster or whatever. And I was really resistant against his advice. But you know what? It took me doing what I did, doing what I love. I actually went on my senior year in high school. I visited a DJ station in the Philippines because I was applying for their student jock program. And I met the really famous morning show people and the couple. And it was named Chico and the Chico and Del show. And Chico asked me, "What are you planning to take up in college?" And I said, "I don't know. I think I want to take like mass communications or organizational communications or something like that." And he says, I would advise against it. I go, "What do you mean?" It's like, if you have the talent and the passion to be, whether on camera or behind a microphone, all you have to do is practice it. You don't need to go 4 years of college to do this. Go to 4 years of college and furthermore, whatever, to do something that's stable, that allows you to then get that stability while being able to do your passion, and learn a craft that gives you that stability, whether that's going to medicine, whether that's going to business, whether that's going to engineering. Because if you have the gift, you'll always have the gift. And so, funny enough, as you probably know, as a mother, your kids will not always listen to what you say, but when they meet somebody that gives pretty much the same advice, they will listen to 100%. And I was the same way.
Wow. That's amazing. So, so inspirational. I mean, it's so then you go from you listen to their advice, and the last I saw you, you were working with the Knicks. And then afterwards, I mean, I touched base with you, and here you are as a philanthropist in heart, starting this amazing project. And that's what I want to talk about. I mean, tell us about it.
Yeah. So, through the years, I've always come home to the Philippines to try to find a way to give back. And how can I make it bigger and bigger? How can I scale the ability to give back? And so, in 2013, I initially started a company in New Zealand called Kinetic, which was an educational company that brought grassroots innovation to places around the world that don't really have access to it. Like, I would teach or have friends of mine teach with me in places like Cambodia, teachers like places like Thailand, like New Zealand, like Czech Republic, because these professionals who were at the same time the same colleagues of mine don't always have the budget or the ability to then fly to a different part of the planet to go to a conference. So I brought the conference to them, but also gave a spin of Tony Robbins and personal growth. But alongside that came a mentorship program that was an initiative that I put called Grasshopper Project. And that comes from Kung Fu and Grasshopper, Little Grasshopper. And basically, I had, when we hosted these events, we had somebody local who would vie for a spot to be, in a sense, an assistant or mentee of a speaker that would be in that town for 3 days. And that's how Grasshopper Project initially, which is my mentorship nonprofit, which is now a 501c3, that we got blessed with that tag in 2018. And so we've been a nonprofit for a while now, but it's really a global community of people who are medical practitioners and performance practitioners and wellness practitioners who also want to give back by way of impacting the next generation, and through mentorship. And then recently, another nonprofit that I have is called Gratitude Gang. And Gratitude Gang really started as a community on Clubhouse, which was a social audio app that was massive during the pandemic. I was an early adopter in 2020, started the first club that was for Filipinos and by Filipinos, but also started the first club that really focused on giving gratitude to everything that's going on in this world. And so, for a year straight, we basically hosted these rooms that had people get the chance to share what they're grateful for and why. And our community grew to almost 50,000 people. And there were rooms where we had 200, 300, 400, 500 people in the room of people just sharing gratitude. But after a year, and with the world opening up, I kind of got tired. So the beautiful thing about a community like that is that even when you, per se, the founder, kind of has to stop because of the fact that you're getting burned out, the community bands together and they themselves host the daily gratitude sessions. And then it just came to the point where we just did it like on Mondays and Fridays, but it lasted for another year. So that was a pretty amazing thing, that it gives you the power of community. And so the most interesting thing about that is that as I kind of faded down, a pretty big typhoon hits the Philippines and hits the southern island of the Philippines called Siargao, which I spent a lot of time in, and it's like the Bali of the Philippines, and it decimated the island. And I didn't want to once again do a GoFundMe page and raise money for ramen noodles and rice and sardines. I said, how can I make this a sustainable impact? And so at that time, cryptos and NFTs and Web3 was really massive. And one of my advisors in life and one of my friends is a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk, or also known as Gary V, very popular with regards to social media, one of the first investors of Twitter, Facebook, and everything social media, one of the first guys to create a social media agency. And I would see him during Knicks games, and I said, "Hey, OGV, I'm thinking about doing something impactful for back in the Philippines, using NFTs to raise funds to rebuild schools in the Philippines. You think I should do it?" He goes, great idea. Let's go for it. Book an appointment with my assistant and let's actually fine tune this. And so, for a guy that charges upwards of $100,000 for a 30-minute conversation, he would do these meetings with me for free and my team back in the Philippines. And so we really peaked up, and by February, this was December when the typhoon happened. I started by the end of December, I had a team, And by February, we were peaking. We had 10,000 people on our Discord. Our Twitter was going crazy. And we launched on February 22, 2022. And then February 23 was when the Ukraine war happened, and everything crashed. And so we just much as we wanted, we built enough pre-sales to like tell the story. People like they knew the story, why they were giving that, why they were buying these pieces of art from the Philippines was to give back to the Philippines. And then it started crashing, and crypto winter came. And so it was one of the darkest moments in my personal life because I was still working for the Knicks, but deep inside, I felt like I failed the kids that I was helping rebuild schools because now people's attention wasn't directly on my project, but a war that was really happening, which fair enough, that's a big, big issue. But it left now the conversations of people saying like, we like the story, but number one, are we going to get our money back or make more money with your project? Or B, is this just another sweep under the rug because now nobody cares about this because now the war is happening? And so that was hard for me to really accept that, this is going to be a challenge. And I tried my hardest to keep it alive, but, it really clearly destiny unfolded in a different way. So what I had to do is then pivot. And how can I make this something real that I can continue to hold on to? And hence the reason why then I decided, you know what, with crypto winter going down, we're just going to make this a real nonprofit instead of a social impact Web3 project. So now we flipped it where it's a nonprofit first and Web3, crypto, whatever is now just a funding source, but not the main idea of it. And so that's how we switched up what Gratitude Gang now is, which is then focused on mental health, but how mental health collaborates and coordinates with malnutrition. And we've seen that in the Philippines, the malnutrition rate, or actually the illiteracy rate for kids above sixth grade in rural, indigenous, and island communities in the Philippines is about 91%. And that happens because of the fact that these kids at the first 1,000 years of their life don't get the proper nutrition, so their brains don't actually grow. And so by the time they're sixth grade, it's not like they don't want to learn. They just physically they can't because their brains don't develop when they were younger. And so for us, what we do with Gratitude now, we partner with local communities that then create feeding programs, but then we add the element of mindfulness and mental health activities so that then the kids can catch up. We can't change what has already been done, but we can try to figure out how we can minimize the impact for future purposes. And so that's what Gratitude Gang has now become. We've really focused on how we can help kids thrive despite some of the challenges they have, particularly in an island in Siargao or in the mountains of the Philippines close to Manila.
That is so amazing. I mean, hearing that story, you came to just shutting down everything, and instead of stopping and giving up, you never gave up. You found a solution. What is your advice to the young people out there today that have lost hope or given up or want to give up?
Somebody I had lunch with I drove up to New Hampshire to have lunch with one of my oldest professors that I've known for 22 years now. And she said, the difference between you than compared to a lot of people is that you continue to reinvent yourself. And that's why people look up to you. And that's why people want to know about your story, is because just when things are changing or shifting, that doesn't mean that's the end of you. It's like despite becoming an expert in this thing and despite becoming an expert in this thing, you continue to want to be an expert in something else. And I think that inherently allows people to understand that you just don't give up, to understand that despite the circumstances that happen in the world, your passion and your interests allow you to continue to move forward. And so I think for any kid out there, for anyone that's going through transition, find something that you're passionate about truly and really go all in and reinvent yourself. And it's okay. Even if like people know you as this thing, you can always switch to another thing.
Absolutely.
Why? Because life is short. I mean,
agree with you.
we shouldn't get stuck on a label just because that's what we were supposed to be. you can be something else. You can decide you want to go to school for something else, or you want to decide you're going to be an apprentice, or you want to decide you're going to be a mountain hiker or a pickleball champion. But if that's something you're passionate about and you feel like you have the skills and the knowledge and maybe destiny's on your side, then why not do it?
Totally.
Yeah.
Where can my viewers find you?
Yeah, you can find me. The easiest way to find me is on social media at Erwin B Valencia. That my name's on here, ERWIN, letter B VALENCIA. You can find me there pretty easily, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's on TikTok, whether that's on Twitter or /X or even at YouTube. Just Erwin B Valencia is the easiest way to find me in any platform. My website is being revamped right now, so you won't find me there.
Well, thank you so much for being such an amazing leader, and thank you for coming on today. God bless.
Thank you very much for having me.